It's the I Can't Mom Today podcast with Heather, the new mom, and Vera, the seasoned mom. I Can't Mom Today.
Hey, this is Vera and Heather back again with another episode of I Can't Mom Today podcast. Hi, Vera.
Hey, Heather. How's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Yeah, that sounded kind of like a wishy-washy good.
I'm just Harry Carey still.
Harry Carey?
Yeah, it's bananas over here. So, I mean, it's not a bad bananas. It's not a good bananas. It's just bananas. It's hectic.
Yeah. So the usual kind of just insanity.
Yeah, but like add an eye twitch with that though.
Yeah.
How are you?
I guess that's good. Yeah. I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Chugging along, like just living the dream.
Well, I love that. I used to always say, I'm living the dream. Someone else's dream, but the dream.
Oh, yeah. Somebody else's dream. There you go. Yeah. It's funny. I actually just read an article that talks about how almost everybody, and I forgot what the percentage was, but it's a very high percentage of people that when somebody says, hey, how are you doing? You say, oh, I'm fine. Everybody says fine.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. And I've tried to get into the habit of if something isn't fine, I won't be like, oh, my God, I'm awful. But I'll say something like, well, I'm hanging in there. It's been a rough week, but I'm good.
Yeah. Without like verbally vomiting all over people.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to I don't want you to regret asking how I was, but at the same time, I want to be kind of honest too. And just be like, I'm having a rough day, but it's okay. We'll make it through,
Yeah.
Something like that.
I love it. Honesty without being Debbie Downer.
Exactly. Being a emotional vortex.
Yes. Well, today we have a very special guest. We have Lauren Barrett, who is a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, as well as an author and blogger. She has a website called laurenbarrettwrites.com, and we'll include that in the show notes. And she has a book also called Henry's Hiccups. Hi, welcome, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
Hi, Heather. Hi, Vera. Thanks so much for having me today.
Of course. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
So to you, it's important with your history of being a teacher, especially of the deaf and hard of hearing, is to help other people understand and move through this. I guess it can be uncomfortable for other people, right? Because we don't how do you communicate with somebody? I think as an adult, we can communicate with people that are hard of hearing by writing, right? But kids can't necessarily do that because a lot of them don't know how to read. Well, not a lot of them, but the younger kids, like especially my son's age, who is 4, he can't read. So how can you help us understand how to navigate the world and how to try to be more inclusive and not awkward?
Yes.
As I'm being right now.
No, you are right. It is uncomfortable for parents, especially if you grew up not talking about these kinds of things. So what I like to tell parents, the first thing to do is to point out, explain, and teach about differences. Don't ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're out with your kid and they see someone that's different and they point it out, instead of being like, oh, gosh, let's not talk about that, and then shutting down the conversation, I always say, thank your child for being curious. And then, if out in public is not the right time to have that conversation, just kindly tell them, hey, that's a great point. Let's go home and talk about that and explore it. And we can talk about it together. Even if you don't have all the answers yourself, you say, you know what, let's go find that out. And then you go home and you have this conversation and you allow them to be curious and ask questions. And just really talk about it. I think that's one of the biggest things, is to talk about people's differences.
Well, this was an interesting topic to me because, and I'd kind of actually totally forgotten about this, but I went to, we call it nursery school, pre-K, I guess is what it's considered now. And it was at college near my house. And it was kind of like, I don't know if you'd call it experimental. I didn't find out till years later. Apparently we were being observed behind, like wondering why there are all these mirrors everywhere.
Wow.
So they had like kids. It was all different kinds of kids, including there was one little boy, his name was Alfie, and he had no arms and legs.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And there was another little boy named Serge. Again, I was 3 and I remember their names. It's all coming back to me. Serge was blind. Trying to remember, obviously those are the most obvious or dramatic differences, I guess. But yeah, I mean, they were all just little kids with maybe, just kind of, different races, with maybe perhaps some issues. I mean, I was perfect, but I was the but you know what I mean? But it was, I look back on that, and I think what they were trying to do is like to see how little kids interact with each other, and are we accepting of each other's differences. I remember specifically, I can still see them trying to teach Alfie how to paint with his prosthetic arms, and getting him to hold a paintbrush so he could paint. And see, I'm almost getting emotional. And then Serge, I was trying to walk Serge, who couldn't see, somewhere, and I grabbed him the wrong way, because there's a specific way you're supposed to hold somebody who's blind to guide them. And he got really upset, and I'll never forget it, because he started to cry, and because I freaked him out, I guess. And then I started to cry because I felt bad. I was like, oh no, what did I do to Serge? So anyway, so that, I think, and they were trying to obviously observe how that all goes and everything. And it was an opportunity. I think my parents liked the fact that I was there, because it was an opportunity for me to see all these different kids and be exposed to that. So I kind of got a jump start on learning how to be inclusive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that story. Yeah, and then I tell parents, after you point out the difference, then you want to kind of teach compassion, that these kids are different, but they're also the same. There's actually a children's book that I've been reading to my kids called "We Are Different, We Are the Same." So it points out people's differences, but then it points out, but yet we're also the same. Like, these kids have feelings. They want to be included. They want to have friends. They want to play. And then just teaching your kids, ways to include these kids. If you see them eating lunch alone, or they're playing on the playground alone, teaching them compassion too, that these kids are the same. They want to be included too.
Yeah. They like to play too. They like to paint. They like to do all the things that you like to do. They're just maybe come at it from a different angle, just because of their differences, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. What's Henry's hiccups about too? I'm sorry. I wanted to ask about the book, but Heather, maybe you want to ask a question. I don't know.
Yeah, I do have a question about, I was a teacher for a little bit, and there were accommodations that certain kids had in the classroom. And I had to explain to the kids, like, it's not, because they're like, it's not fair. I'm like, fair looks different to everybody. And so how would you explain that to the younger crowd? Because obviously, as the kids here are getting older, you're hoping that they've already experienced some sort of alternate accommodations for different children, or have experienced kids with different abilities. But how would you navigate that as a parent and or as a educator?
Yeah. So there's actually some good visual examples out there. And the one that kind of stands out to me, to kind of show the difference between equal and equitable, is that there's these kids, and they're along the fence, and there's some kids that are taller, and there's some kids are shorter. And to help all the kids see over the fence, that one kid might need to have a chair to stand on. And I kind of showed it that way. And there's another example where you have different animals, and there was like a fish, a giraffe, and I think like an elephant. And they said, like, so the test today is you have to climb the tree. And I think there was a monkey, and the monkey was like, yeah, I got this. And then the fish and the elephant were like, what? We can't do this. And that's not fair. That's not a measure of our intelligence. So that's kind of how I teach kids, that some people need things differently to help them to be successful.
That was a really great analogy. I've actually seen those pictures, but I'll see if I can if I can find them online to link into the show notes too, because it really is it is impactful and interesting. Great graphic for kids to visually see and understand.
Yes. Yeah.
So you wanted to
like those
ask
analogies
about the book, Vera?
Yeah, I was curious about Henry's hiccups, the book that you wrote, and I wanted to hear about it.
Yeah, so Henry's Hiccups is named after my son, Henry, and it's about a little boy who gets the hiccups, and he cannot stop the hiccups. He just keeps hiccuping, and he goes to school, and every time he tries to answer the teacher's question, instead of being able to answer it, he hiccups. So he gets really down and he's thinking about what he can do. And he realizes he has a friend that is deaf and she uses sign language to communicate. And he thinks, oh, what if I answer the teacher's questions in sign language? And then my hiccups won't be able to get in the way. And he does that. And the teacher's kind of confused. And then his friend walks by with her deaf and hard of hearing class. And her teacher was like, you know what? He's right. He just used a different way to communicate. And then how about, my class teaches your class sign language. And there is a dictionary in the back with some signs that you can teach kids. And what I love is that this book is illustrated by 2 of my former deaf students. So yeah. Yeah.
That's really
cool. So sweet. That's such a sweet story.
Yeah. It's just a way to be more inclusive and teach kids about how people communicate in different ways.
Funny story. Sorry.
Yeah. No, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just a random funny story. So my husband is, he had such an active imagination as a child. And so one of his thoughts was he saw something on somebody on TV one time that had the hiccups for like 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And couldn't get rid of them. And so he's like, oh my God, every time from that point on, when he had the hiccups, he was so nervous that he was going to have hiccups.
Oh no,
he'd be stuck never get rid of them. So it's a very real fear in some kids.
Well, at the end, his hiccups go away.
Oh,
so I don't want kids. Yes. I did not want kids to think that they could have the hiccups forever.
All right. Yeah. That's a relief.
Yeah. That sounds a really cool book. Is it available through, where is it available?
It's on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And you can find it on my website too.
Okay, cool. We'll make a link for that as well.
Yeah. And I also have a video of me signing the story so you can see what it looks like in sign language.
Oh, cool. How did you end up teaching sign language?
Yeah. So when I was in 6th grade, so I'm from a really small town. We didn't have a big deaf population. But a family moved into the area and they had 2 kids that went to my school and their mom was deaf. And my mom wanted to learn sign language to be able to communicate with their mom. And she went and I kind of tagged along with her. And my mom tried really hard, bless her, but she could not pick it up. But being a kid, I was able to pick it up really quickly. And I actually developed a friendship with this lady and I just kind of stuck with it and knew that I always wanted to be a teacher. And then when I learned that you can combine the 2 and be a teacher of the deaf, I was like, yeah, definitely. That's definitely what I want to do.
Nice.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been teaching for 11 years now.
So how would a child, if they have someone in their home or not in their home, but in their school that is deaf or hard of hearing, how does one get someone's attention? Like if they're trying to talk to them and like maybe their back's turned or something, and without pulling a Vera and scaring them.
Right.
Yeah. So if they're able to flick the lights, that's a way to always grab deaf people's attention and then just kind of meet them in the front. So you're not coming up behind them to scare them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or they also can feel vibrations. So there's a lot of stomping and tapping in deaf classrooms. Yeah, just get their attention.
Flicking the lights, though, I would never think of that. So that's a good tip.
Yeah. Don't throw pencils at them. I've done that before. It's like, hey, listen.
Oh no.
I mean, kidding. I was joking. But yeah. And they do it with each other too. But
oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. How do you, if you have a child or you see a child, no, let me back that up, back this question up. So how do you teach your child to help other kids understand too? Because, some people may not understand how to deal with, and kids sometimes can be mean and pick on other kids. And so what kind of tactics have you used to help your students to where they're empowering each other to, I don't know, just not take the other kids being mean, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Hope you
So I
understand that
think,
question.
yeah, I
It's
think
like,
what makes kids and adults even so afraid is that they just don't have the knowledge. So I like to not only teach kids about, what it means to be different, but also give them the tools to know how to teach other kids. And I think once we have that knowledge, it's definitely makes things less afraid, because sometimes people are afraid of the unknown. And
sure.
yeah, if I remember one example, I teach at a high school, and a group of, I think it was girls, they walked by and I heard them whisper, and they said kind of something really offensive about my classroom. And they're like, oh, that's this kind of class. And I kind of was like to them, like, you don't even know them. So why don't you come in and kind of observe who they are and get to know them and talk to them and meet them and communicate with them. And I think once they did that, they learned, oh, okay. Totally,
So they did take you up on it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like that they did. They could have been like snobby teenagers and
whatever.
Exactly. I can say that because I have a 19-year-old. So
yeah, but it's just like seeing somebody with hearing aids. That could be something that people aren't used to seeing, and like, what's that thing on their ears? And they make them smaller and smaller, right? So it's not so noticeable. But kids, I mean, again, kids can be mean, like, oh, look at him.
Yeah.
And there's nowadays there's just tons of movies and books out there that kind of teach that stuff. So
are there any good ones that I was gonna say?
Yeah, there's one that's up for an Oscar right now. It's called CODA, which stands for
I've seen that. Yeah, what does that stand for?
A Child of a Deaf Adult. So it's about a hearing girl whose family is all deaf, and just how she navigates that. It's a really good movie. Yeah, the actors in it are really deaf, and I just really like it. So just exposing kids to like those types of movies, and tons of literature out there too, including Henry's Hiccups.
There you go.
Is there a way that you can teach empathy for kids and also adults? Because I know that when I was younger, my grandparents, I talk really fast. I'm really working on that. But they would ask me over and over again. I'd be like, ugh. And then as I'm getting older and struggling a little bit myself now with hearing people that talk fast, even though I still do it, I now understand what it feels like. And so, when I was a teenager, I didn't have that empathy. I was like, whatever, never mind, it's important. And so how is there a way that we can help teach that empathy to other kids?
Yeah, there's this great exercise that I've seen done before to help kind of kids understand is that I think you give like a lesson in a different language, and it's like really demanding. You're like, it's like the language is yelling at them, and then you're like, okay, now you have to answer these questions, and then the kids are like, oh, what? I didn't even understand that. And then you kind of relate it to, okay, well, this is how people who are deaf feel, like people who come to a school with not knowing the language. How did that make you feel? And just kind of relate that, and it's a really good exercise to do.
I can see. Yeah, it is. It's a different language. Yeah, you'd be lost.
even in dialects, right? We don't even understand dialects.
Totally. Aside, like my husband, we have to put the closed captioning on. Like if we're watching a movie where it's English, but it's like British English, he can't understand it.
Yeah.
Like it's not that hard. I have no idea what they're saying. So I put the closed captioning on.
Oh yeah, I always have the closed captioning on.
Oh, that's funny.
I've just kind of gotten used to it over the years, and now I've kind of made my husband, like my husband needs it now too. He's like,
oh my gosh, that's funny.
We do the same thing. Well, because Brad has a ringing in his ear, so he needs it.
Oh no, he has that. I forget what it's called.
Tinnitus.
That's it.
Yeah. So there are some things that he'll miss, so we have to keep the closed caption on. But now it's my crutch now too. So I'm like, what? It makes sense. Listen, we all did what we got to do.
Yeah,
this is true.
Well, cool. Thank you so much, Lauren, for joining us today. And is your contact information on your website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you just go ahead and share it real quick?
Everything is Lauren Barrett Writes on Instagram, email, Facebook.
Amazing.
Website.
Make it easy.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we will include that all in the show notes. And if you have any questions, definitely reach out to Lauren, who is an expert. And until next time.
Bye.
Bye.